So I was
Yeah, and
asking
I do.
you.
That's why I'm on this abortion live, because I feel like I do
Hmm.
have enough knowledge about abortion and
Hmm.
basic biological, like embryology, fucking research to
Hmm.
have a
Sure,
decent say.
sure. So I guess we could just stick to the topic of abortion for the sake of this
Yeah,
live.
that's fine.
Where do your
Yeah, but
beliefs
you don't have
stem
enough
off of?
information, and
Because
we've
we kept
already
going on
talked about this.
tangents about like military and
No
police
problem.
Right,
and
I
but
will
here
not
the
bring up.
problem
history.
is, really quick, Naomi, we already have talked about this. He's been on my live for over an hour. And
Oh,
really the he can talk to you, that's fine. I'll allow it. I don't care. But he doesn't know enough. And we've already proved this. The chat knows that. And you keep bringing up embryology. So can you tell me what that is? Cuz this is like the eighth
Embryologists
time.
study of like cells, like sex cells, like sperm and egg, and like the whole process.
Okay, so tell me about that process.
Like I'm
Since you keep
saying,
bringing it up.
I'm not an expert, but I can say sperm meets egg. It's called mitosis. 9 months, you get pregnant, have a kid.
okay. So where do you I guess so you rely on science for your arguments, correct? If I'm, assuming correctly.
These are things you can literally search up on Google. When does life
No, no, yeah,
begin?
I know.
What was conception?
Mhm.
I'm not discrediting you. I'm just asking so I know, like, if you want me to approach you in a religious perspective, if you want me to approach you in like a scientific manner, morality, like I just
It's
want to
like a
get an
factual
understanding.
manner, like factual.
Sure. So
Okay, she's
science.
literally asking science or religion. That's all. Are you science or religion? Just answer the question,
Science,
please.
science, science.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
perfect. So what do you believe? Why do you believe that life starts at conception? I guess we can start there.
Well, half your genetic code from the father
Mm-hmm.
mixes with half the genetic code from the mother. It creates
Mm-hmm.
its own unique identity, DNA,
Mm-hmm.
that determines height, eye color, personality,
Right. Right.
sex, right? All
Of
these
course.
different characteristics that make a
Mm-hmm.
human a human. It's just
Right. Okay.
people confusing the terms embryo and fetus. Like every time the terms embryo, every time people
No,
say
no,
those
no.
things, they refer to as non-humans, but they're
No,
not
no, I'm not
non-human.
even going into
It's just
that. I'm
humans
not
at
even
like
going into that.
particular stages of development. That's all. That's all a fetus and embryo is.
So I guess to me, you would have to sort of classify why this makes it a life because, there's plenty of people that are 6 feet under right now that have a unique genetic code,
Mm.
half from mom, half from dad. But what makes this living?
May I
It,
just interject really
what
fast,
makes it
Naomi?
living?
I just want to interject really fast. I know that you're talking to him, and that's fine. But I also want to let you know
You're
that we've
good.
talked about this as well, about what a person is, what humanity is, and he doesn't really have a definition either. He just said that a human is a person with genetic code, and then I said, well, what is it without you? Like we've gone through this. We've gone down this rabbit hole, so I just want to let you know that it's about to go in circles.
Okay, no
Okay,
problem.
go ahead. All right,
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, so to me with the argument that life starts at conception, I can concede to your point as long as you're talking about cellular life because I agree that
Well,
cellular
well,
life does start.
well, the zygote like immediately initiates like development, right? Like at the
Yeah,
moment
so
it starts to develop. It
not
starts.
immediately. It, it
Well,
it it prepares for the process, but after 74 hours approximately is when cellular division occurs.
after the cellular, when is that? Do you know?
74 hours is when cellular is when it turns from a single cell to a multicellular organism. Some people say it's like between 30 to 70, so I guess you would just have to go off of that. So I wouldn't say that it immediately becomes a multicellular organism. I guess it could prepare for that. However, I still don't see how that would signify personhood or how that would signify it being a human being.
Well, it is a human being. This is what I don't get. Like something non-human does not
Hmm.
become a human by getting older and bigger, right? Whatever is a
Right.
human must be a human from the beginning. You're
And you're arguing and
just
you're
because it's
arguing that it's human
barely,
because it has like human DNA or like human cells.
yeah, it's got its own. It's in
Okay.
developmental
So
stage that has
so
the
if I get
DNA to have its
if
own
I
eye
have a
color.
tumor, if I have a tumor right now, God forbid, it would be comprised of human cells. Would we call that a human being?
human being. No, it's not a human being. It's
Right.
life. It's life.
Yeah.
But it's not
Yeah.
a
And
human
I've already conceded to the
being
point that
as
cellular life begins at conception. So I would agree to that. But that's where you would have to sort of substantiate your points that it is a human being just because it maintains cellular life. Because then again, you also have these other cellular life forms that come from the human species, and obviously they can't be animal cells, they can't be dog cells, they can't be cat cells, they're human cells. Therefore, you have to substantiate your points as to why cellular life signifies personhood.
Mm-hmm.
well, this cellular life, it's a zygote. It's not like any other cell in your body. A cancer cell is just merely a mutated normal cell that's replicating too fast with mutated genes. This zygote, it's its own thing. There's no other zygote like that in the world.
What's a
Assuming like you have
zygote, may I ask?
a zygote is when the sperm meets an egg and it starts developing, right?
Are you talking about specifically a human
Yeah,
sperm and
human
a human
zygote.
egg?
Yes. A zygote is composed of human DNA and like other human molecules. So it's undeniably human and not some other species.
Sure. So if you're talking about, I'm not arguing that it's not human. I'm just arguing that it's not human being.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Human
there's a
being is
difference.
human. That's a zygote. When I'm saying human, I'm referring to human being.
Right, but human and human being are not synonymous terms.
How so? Explain, please.
Because a human can just be anything that is comprised of human DNA and has cellular life. A human being, however, by definition, is a man, woman, or child of the species Homo sapien that has the power to articulate speech, upright stance, mental development, etc. So a human and a human being aren't necessarily synonymous.
So what you're saying is that for in order to be considered a human being, you need to have you need to be able to functionally do all those things you just mentioned.
No, in order to become a human being, you need to maintain the characteristics of life on your own, not via somebody else's bodily autonomy.
I just want to also say that
Where is
zygote
that
is
scientific
not.
fact from?
Normal guy brought up a good point. I didn't want to interrupt, but zygote is not. This it's not exclusive to humans either.
Yeah.
Just like embryos aren't, and so
No,
on.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
when I'm talking about zygote, I'm just talking about human zygote.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the sake of the argument, a human zygote, however, cannot maintain its own homeostasis. It cannot breathe on its own, cannot filter out its blood on its own. It receives everything from the umbilical cord, which is attached to the mother. So how can you argue that it's a human being when, for one, it's not even separate, and two, cannot maintain its own bodily processes?
Well, like I said before, something not non-human does not become human by getting older or bigger, being able to speak or talk. Whatever is human must be human from the beginning. It just doesn't work like that. It just
No,
doesn't.
but I see what you mean, but however, that still wouldn't make sense because, again, with the analogy of like a human cancerous cell, you still wouldn't argue that just because it's a human cancerous cell that it would, formulate into a human being.
A human cancer cell is not, it's life, but it's not a human being life, right? Our sperm
Exactly,
cells,
and
they're life,
that's what I'm.
but they're not human being life. A zygote is life, but also happens to be a human being life. Zygote's literally in the process of becoming a baby, right? It's only a matter of time.
Right, you're right. It is only a matter of time. It is in the process of becoming a human
Yeah.
being. I'm glad,
And so
we
that's
can
what I'm
come to
saying. When
terms with
people
that.
refer to them as embryos or fetuses, it does not make him non-human. It's just referring to human beings at particular stages of development. That's all it is.
Right. I don't think that anyone's
No different than a
referring.
toddler or adolescent or an elderly.
Right. No
I
one's
would
saying
not
that
agree.
though. But I'm not saying like there's no. I don't agree that they're the same. But no one is referring to referring to it as embryo or a zygote to denote that it's somehow not human. Like I don't know why is that relevant. I'm just not sure.
Exactly. Like a human being and a human is what I'm trying to get across to you are two different things. You can be a human.
Human is different.
Huh?
You said that? Am I hearing
Yes,
right?
she
Yeah.
has multiple times now. Yes, just like
Okay,
I
but
did an hour ago. I
no,
don't.
but
I
like
just
she's explaining it more like simply for me. All right, continue.
Okay,
okay.
so if you look at the two definitions, a human is just related to the characteristics of, being Homo sapien. Being a
Okay.
being, however, is different. Not only that, but you can't argue that something is a being and that it's separate when it cannot perform its own bodily processes. So that's the difference between, you know, I mean, you would have to argue that this human cellular life is in existence and doesn't have, and you're arguing that it has the potentiality to become a baby. You would have to sort of prove that
Because
it's
it doesn't,
already.
just because it's not able to perform its own bodily functions doesn't mean it's not a being, right? People in comas are still beings, but or like people on life support are still beings,
You're
but they're
right.
dependent on other machines, but they're still a
You're
human
right.
being. So that's the
Absolutely.
thing. The
Absolutely.
person, a
However,
zygote or
those
a
would
fetal
be,
fetus, depending on the mother's like
nope.
body.
That would be
Same
two
thing.
different things because one would be using its own bodily processes with the help of machinery. The
Mhm.
other would be using somebody else's bodily processes because the zygote or the fetus, the embryo, is connected to the mother via the placenta, which is the organ that, develops in the uterus, like, during pregnancy. And it basically helps, filter out blood, provides it oxygen, nutrients, etc. Now, with somebody who's, let's say, in a coma, their bodily processes are still functioning. Like, let's say I had like a heart issue, they would, put something in that helps my heart function. However, they wouldn't just replace my heart with some sort of bionic heart. So I'm still using my bodily processes to maintain, myself and not relying on somebody else's, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess you sort of like rely on the personhood argument, but let's just say I do concede to the fact that it is a human being. Let's say that we've agreed that it's a human being, etc. What would give the human being, um, if the fetus was a human being, the moral obligation to be entitled to using the mother's bodily autonomy?
Assuming it wasn't rape, that human being did not ask to be put in this world, right? Did not ask to be fucking made. So
Hmm.
assuming it's not rape.
Right.
So because of that, the mother should take responsibility for bringing this human being to this world. This
Okay.
human being had no say.
Bless you.
Thank you so.
So yeah, you're right. It does not have a say. However, I mean, if you're talking about responsibility, responsibility is just the duty to deal with something. So, by dealing with it, you could be going to, get an abortion. You could be choosing to put it up for adoption. You could be choosing to, do something else with it. So to say that, abortion is inherently irresponsible, I mean, you're still sort of fulfilling that responsibility
I know, but there's
to
so many other
act.
choices, right? There's abstinence, contraceptives, motherhood slash fatherhood,
You're right. You're right. So
adoption.
so
But they always resort
exactly.
to like for the
Yeah.
people that didn't get raped, they always resort far too many times
So
to
so let's
abortion.
talk about it. So you stated that abstinence was a possibility. You could still get pregnant if you abstain because you could
Correct?
get
Correct?
R-worded. Now let's
Yeah,
talk about if it's not about abstinence. Let's say you're using contraceptives. You
correct,
could still get pregnant if you're using
correct.
multiple forms of
But
contraceptives.
people, you act like people don't know that. Like even in the back of the condom box, it says 99.9 or whatever percent
Absolutely.
effective. It never says 100%
Absolutely.
effective. So you're assuming that
Absolutely.
you're not going to get pregnant. But
No,
there's so
not that you're assuming that you're not going to get pregnant. I'm trying to argue that you haven't consented to pregnancy
Yep.
just based off of knowing the risk. The same way that
He
I wouldn't
he
consent.
believes that if you know the risks, you have consented.
Oh,
yeah.
Those are his. That's
okay.
his belief system. Yeah. I knew you were gonna get there, and I
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
wanted to
because you're
let you
talking
know
about
that
the person who
he
smokes
believes
cigarettes,
that.
right?
I'm gonna let
No.
Naomi argue her own point. But
Okay.
yes, so he believes that if you consent, or I'm sorry, if you have sex, if you or if his base logic is if you know the risks, then you have consented. to
Okay.
why.
Okay, so let's say I know the risks of getting into a car crash. I think car crashes are like the leading top 10 deaths in the United States, something like that. I
Mhm.
know that there is a risk that I can get, rammed into by a semi truck, rammed into by a drunk driver. I follow all the precautions. I put on my seatbelt. I follow traffic laws. I knew that there was a risk. Do you think I
Mhm.
consented to being hit by the drunk driver?
You consented to the possibility of getting hit, of getting killed.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Same thing with pregnancies or broken condoms or failed birth control. You're consenting to the possibility that there's still a chance of you getting pregnant. So who's the one to blame? You, because you took that risk. No one's
Sure.
forcing
So
you to have
let's
sex. No one's unless that's
Sure.
what I'm
So
saying. Unless
let's just say I did consent to the possibility. Let's say by knowing the risks I did consent to being hit by a drunk driver, which to me sounds um sort of ridiculous, but let's say that I did consent to that. When I go
the
to the hospital and
Mhm.
I meet with a physician or the ER doctor, the ER nurse, the nurse practitioner, do you think that when they speak to me, they're going to tell me, well, you consented to the risk, therefore we are not going to give you backup options?
So you're saying no, they should that person who got hit should get medical treatment.
Right.
There's a
See? Okay. At least
yeah.
we're on the same page.
Yeah, but
So,
that this where it gets you're trying to use that to compare to abortion, but the abortion there's another life on the line, right? There's another life that had nothing to do with it, so
okay.
it's not the same.
Sure. So let's make an analogy that's sort of analogous to abortion then. If you think we won't even use the consent. Let's say that today I and I'm probably sure you're going to agree to this, but let's just see. Let's say today, my partner and I decide that we want kids. We have kids. 9 months later, I had a recessive gene. My partner had a recessive gene for, let's say, like a rare blood disease.
Hmm.
And my child ended up having the rare blood disease. I don't have the rare blood disease. My partner does not. The only person that is a genetic match to my child's blood for the blood transfusion for that certain blood disease is me. Do you think that I would be legally obligated? I'm not talking about morally, legally obligated to perform the blood transfusion.
Here in the U.S., no, you're not. Apparently, you're not legally obligated. I don't know.
Exactly. So why would we provide that same legal obligation? Because if you look at pregnancy, it's more than just a blood transfusion. I mean, you're giving
Hmm.
it blood through the placenta, you're giving it nutrients through the placenta, you're giving it oxygen via the placenta. So why would we not extend that same courtesy to something that's even higher up on the scale?
Well, the thing is, it's always analogies. It's not. This is
I
such a
mean,
gray area. Like one analogy is not going to work for like certain
you're
situations.
right,
Every
but
situation
the
is different.
issue is nothing is completely analogous to pregnancy. So regardless, we have to analogize it somehow. Nothing is going to be completely analogous to pregnancy because nothing is.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's why you have to use analogies. And even, I mean, in the world of debating, you use analogies.
okay, but I don't feel like it's the most ap- appropriate way to like
Okay,
target.
so if you don't think my analogy is appropriate, you can modify it, and then I can tell you if I think
I
it's
just feel like going by
inappropriately.
facts, it's the most appropriate.
Right,
Uh,
but we did go off of facts. We established that it's not a human being,
Yep,
even though it has
but
human
that's
DNA.
where like, I agree. It is a fact. It is a human being. It's God's
What
own DNA.
It's not. It's not.
It
And
is.
if you Okay, so go ahead, and I'll give you some time, and you can pull up a peer-reviewed article that says that a fetus is recognized by most embryologists, at least 51% of embryologists or higher, that it is a human being. It has to be peer-reviewed, and if you do, I will concede.
That's going to take some time because I need to get on some .edu.gov or like
No, all you have to do is type in fetus human being, Google Scholar, and find a source that says peer-reviewed.
Yeah, it's quite easy.
being. All right.
But the point is, you said your words. It's factual that it's a
Well,
human
yeah,
being. So if you're
all
gonna say that,
things
then you need to have something to back your point up.
I'm getting these things from like .edus, .govs, but apparently you want me to get like a scholarly article written by
Yeah,
peer
because
reviewed
.edu and .govs aren't
abstract.
necessarily always credible when it comes to like embryology and biological things.
Okay. So what do you want
Yeah,
me to
that's
search up?
just search up human being. Is a fetus a human being? And then
Is it-
type in Google Scholar. Let me know if you find a scholarly source or a peer-reviewed source that says that most embryologists, or 51% or more embryologists, agree that it is a human being. If you do, read me out the article name and the author. I will read it and then I will concede.
All right. Just before even I waste my time, would you consider NCBI, the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health, a credible source?
As long as it's a peer-reviewed study or a peer-reviewed source, sure.
Yeah, it is. It's got like an abstract. It's got okay. All right, let me read the abstract real quick.
No problem. I will go live with Abby afterwards, guys. I'm just going to finish up this conversation, and then if she wants me to go live with her, of course, then I'll try to join. There's a crazy man on Abby's live, guys. If you want, are you on a MacBook or like a regular laptop?
I'm on my computer, like Windows. It's Windows.
Okay, click Control F and type in human being. It'll highlight every single.
That shortcut. Yeah. Holy shoe! There's like so many.
Oh, if her requests are full, I won't be able to join. Because her chat is probably going to be busy too, so she won't even see that I like hopped in. Are you sick?
Me?
Yeah, I heard him sniffling. I feel like everybody is sick lately.
I'm sick. I'm eating a lemon with salt right now, but yes, I'm sick.
Ooh, delicious.
Yeah, I love it.
I love sour things. Did y'all eat
Right.
today? Yes, my dad cooked me
I
some
did.
really good food today.
I ate chicken nuggets, spicy chicken nuggets from Wendy's.
My dad made meatballs. It was good.
Have we found anything yet?
Yeah, I'm trying to. You said by what 51 or over 50%? I can't find those exact numbers where things.
As long as it's like most embryologists agree and it's not like something that they don't have a general consensus on, then yes. If it says that they did a study and it has, and the internal validity of the study is good, and most embryologists, or at least 51% of embryologists or higher, agree, then I will concede.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing a research.
A homework assignment.
You guys, you don't have to announce that you're going back to Abby's live. That's not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure. I encourage you to check Abby's live out. I think that would be great, but you don't have to announce it. So
Someone's like, not this.
I just think it's not conducive to what we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Abby's
No, you're
using
right.
Earth to abs. Abs.
Oh my god, I debate with her almost every night and I don't even remember her username by heart.
I'm really good about like I don't know easy usernames like that. I just remember them.
Dang. How would he find out if 51% agree? Usually if it's like a study that they did where it's like a research study,
Yes,
it'll tell you the percentage wise, or it'll tell you how many of them were like test subjects, how many agreed, how many disagreed, and then you could just calculate it on your own, I guess. But I'm almost 1,000% sure that there will not be a single study that says 51% of embryologists agree, because on my free time I actually do look at this stuff. And it says that embryologists have not come to a majority consensus. So I do feel like I'm sort of wasting his time. But for the sake of, his points, I will let him look through it. And then if he does find it, I will concede.
So what you're saying is, in order for this to be valid, this stance, it needs to be approved by
Majorly recognized.
Yeah, because you said that it's a fact that embryologists have said this. So if you're going to say that it is a fact,
yeah.
then you
I'm saying
have to back
all I'm
that
saying is the
up.
fact that it's a human being, and you want me to prove it to you, and I'm looking.
Yes, we want you to. Yes,
Yeah.
you can't say that something is a fact
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's not able to be proved, honey.
Oh, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
But Z, I'm telling you right now, you most likely will not find an article that says it. Just because I do look at this on my own time. So it's going to be extremely hard. If you find like an article deep down in there, then I will still concede.
Yeah,
But it is
they're all saying, like, the only part they're missing is like referring to majority. Like, I can pull up like 8 right now agreeing with my stance, but
sure. If you want me to
Right.
like
help you
one
look through one
article.
with you, go ahead and give me the article name, and then while you look at one, I'll look at one, and I'll see if it says anything.
How do I send it to you if I'm
Oh, just you can just read out the name. I don't think you'll be able to like exit the live and send it.
Okay, here we go. Just let me type it in the chat.
No problem.
Are you like a med student or like a...
Oh no, absolutely not. I was going to go into pre-med, but it's just not for me. I like law more, to be honest.
That's fair. I was going to go into law school myself.
Yes. What made you not want to?
I don't know. I just ended up going a different route. I ended up going into activism instead, which doesn't
I
mean
like
that I
that.
still couldn't necessarily go the law school route. Naomi, we should make our own. We should both become lawyers and make our own firm.
That is one of my biggest dreams.
I'm a
Sorry, what did you say?
All right, it's
Oh,
called
personhood.
Personhood Status of the Human Zygote Embryo Fetus by John Janet McLovick. Write down, and then let me post up.
I can read it to you if you want, Naomi.
Yes, please. Embryo
Yeah,
fetus.
I feel like that would be...
Yeah, so personhood status of the human zygote embryo fetus. Yeah.
See, that article refers to not all, but like some embryologists referring to it as a human life.
Guys, stop trying to railroad Naomi to get on Abby's live. Naomi has already said that she will go on Abby's live after she is done talking to him. Railroading and being very aggressive toward Naomi is really weird, and I would encourage you all to relax. Anyways.
Naomi's chill. Start a podcast.
Thank you. Everybody says that, but there's nothing that I would talk about on a podcast that would make sense.
Just read the alphabet. Your voice alone is like soothing. Like,
thank you so much. I was thinking of like doing lives where I just read people bedtime stories, like books about like Black liberation as a bedtime story.
do ASMR and you'll be making bank.
Do ASMR? Yes.
Yeah.
I'll start whispering Zemma's name.
Please do, honestly. Yeah, I love. All
right, did you find that article?
Oh yeah, I did find it. I'm reading through it right now.
Oh.
I think we've all decided that Naomi should tell bedtime stories on live. I will simply end my live every time. I'll be like, y'all, Naomi's telling bedtime stories. Goodbye.
Oh my god. I should start reading like marks on there.
You should. I agree. Turn some people radical a little bit.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So the article that you gave me states that it can't be classified as a human being. It says the first of the two hypotheses is that a human being has existed since fertilization and that personhood is always inherent in a human being at all stages of development. A human being does not become a person at the particular stage of development following fertilization. So this one would rule it out. I don't know if there's another one that you would like
But
to
even
look
here
for.
it says here, just let me read you this part. One
Sure.
could thus propose that certain features appearing in embryogenesis and fetal progression that are uniquely human are uniquely reliant on human zygote DNA. This argues
Yeah.
strongly that the human being at the one cell stage already possesses status for personhood. So there's that, and then where's the other one? Oh fuck, I didn't save it. Here, let me find it. But yeah, there was that one.
You're good. Yeah, but if you still read down, it says the maternal derived zona, blah, 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 would appear to be necessary part for the developing human, and the personhood status of a conceptus independent of its mother is necessarily in question. Therefore, it would have to be independent of its mother to be then identified as that. I guess you could identify it as a person in itself or develop personhood, so long as it's disconnected from the mother. So long as there's no longer a physical connection, then it could be set up. For example, like in the in vitro fertilization settings, you could say that
Yeah,
it had
like
been
this article is just
established.
talking about like both sides. It's not really.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's also important to understand that it said one could propose and not that it is. And so the way that speaking
Yeah, this is
works
like a
in peer-reviewed
study of.
articles, there's no right. So there's no absolute. And for something to be factual, there needs to be something as absolute. So she
yeah. The study
is
is peer
pregnant.
reviewed though, so it is credible. However,
Yeah.
it still sort of questions it internally. And it also doesn't have a specific number per se as to how many embryologists agree with the fact that it does start at personhood, because it also, in the same sentences that it agrees that it starts at personhood, then shows the like opposite side of it on how it could be like a refuted point, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yes. But yeah, so you can look into them on your free time. What I was sort of trying to prove is that it is largely still under consensus. Scientists don't largely. You may find some scientists that agree that it happens, and I'm not doubting
So
that.
why not?
Huh?
So if you're arguing it's not, so obviously not 100% of like embryologists agree that's a human being, but why not
Exactly.
give that potential zygote the title of being a human being, right? The benefit of the doubt to life. Why not?
Sure.
Why not
Sure.
be better safe than?
So let's just say that it is the human being. It is the human being. I will address it as a human being. We can say that the human being a human being starts at fertilization. Would this mean that it has innate, like it has more, should have more moral consideration than the mother or the birthing person?
That's what I'm saying. It all depends if that person willingly brought this human being into life purposefully or not.
So you think if the person willingly brought it into life, then it should have moral consideration over the mother?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's not all black and white. It's because when I'm pro life,
Sure.
I'm just pro like, okay, you knew
Sure.
what was gonna
So
happen. It happened, so just own up to it. That's
sure,
all.
but
That's all my stance is. So when you're saying, what were you saying? Whether or not it should
have more moral consideration.
than the mother?
Mhm.
I feel like they equally should, but this is where it gets tricky. Is like, who has more
Okay.
say? The mother, because
So
the mother's the one giving life to the baby, or the baby. But at the same time, the baby that has to be there. That's the thing.
right, correct
Baby
me if
had
I'm
no say.
wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that because the fetus is living, and by terminating the pregnancy, the mother is killing the fetus, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where I would argue with that is by severing that connection, the mother doesn't necessarily kill the fetus. The fetus is just not viable. Therefore, it dies under its own conditional circumstances, similar to like Z, if I had somebody, if let's say you were not viable right now, you needed like a blood transfusion, I was the only eligible donor, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm killing you by, choosing not to give you the blood transfusion. I would just say that I'm refusing resources, and as a result, you end up dying.
Right.
Does that my point of view
Exactly.
kind of make
Like
sense?
regarding viability, like in a broad sense, many born people are not viable because they are incapable of surviving without like depending on others.
Right.
Right, but
So
depending on others is different than depending on their body for resources.
yeah, and the viability that I'm talking about would be like the one that you get at like 24 weeks gestation, where you have like cortical consciousness, and when your lungs develop to a point where you could survive outside of the womb. So that's
Okay,
sort of
so
what I'm.
then I have this to say. So the whole
Sure.
point of viability changes because it depends on technology, not the unborn themselves. Like eventually babies may be viable from the point of conception if our like technology advances. So that's why I'm saying why not just give them the benefit of the
I
doubt to life.
do hear
Because
this argument a lot, and you are right. The viability is contingent on technology. However, that's because different countries currently don't have the technology associated with like the medical intervention required to support fetal lungs. So, since the first challenge of viability is associated with like the development of the lungs, and the lungs aren't used by the fetus because obviously it receives oxygen from the mother via like the placenta, then the fetus needs substantial lung functions as soon as the umbilical cord is cut because it will rely on its own lungs. So the development of lung cells occur between 16 to 24 weeks. So even if the baby is born at 24 weeks, intense medical intervention may still be required. Therefore, the current medical technology is not likely to change the age of fetal viability much more, because unless we go into like creating bionic lungs, if you have not developed
Mhm.
the exact cells to create those lungs within the 16 to 24 week period, there would sort of be no way of creating them for you unless you're talking about like in womb, in fetal lung transplants, which highly unlikely that a fetus of such nature would survive such a huge operation.
So what makes a person viable? So you're saying if it can survive outside of the mother's body, that makes that person
with
viable.
its own body processes, yes.
Yes,
Okay. So that's why viability is so like great. It's such
broad.
a great concept. So like why
Yeah,
not associate like personhood with heartbeat, brainwaves, or something else like the zygotes do have? So why does it have to be
Because
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 we're
um other species have brainwaves and other species have heartbeat. So if you're going to associate something to mean a person, it has to
Mhm.
only exist in personhood. Otherwise, it is not a qualifier of what makes something a person or leads to personhood, which I already, talked to you about.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I hope some of my points sort of got through. I do recommend that maybe just try to look into like more credible sources, sort of like the ones that you did right now, like when we were looking together. When you
Mhm.
typed in Google Scholar, you found like an actual like credible article.
Mhm.
So if you read into those, who knows, maybe you might be able to support your argument. But I would
I
recommend
told
that.
him to talk to Sanvi. I did. I told him, I said, if you're
Who's
going
the
to have
inviter?
this,
Who's that?
Uh-huh.
I don't. I told him to talk to Sanvi because I said if you're gonna have these opinions, I would prefer that you speak to somebody who does know what they're talking about and is incredibly consistent. So,
Yeah.
and
Or
I
or
stick
if
by
you
that.
want to
So.
look into the pro-choice side, then I would highly recommend Liam. But
Liam.
you would also, yeah, Liam is a great pro-choice activist. But he doesn't look into it through the medical aspect. He more so looks into it as why does a fetus have rights before birth, after birth, post
Mhm.
connection, so
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I don't
And
want to take up too much
I
of
would
your
also
time,
recommend
Zema.
Naomi. You can talk to Naomi more as well. She's a great activist and really knows what she's talking about. There are a lot of people on both sides that you can really talk to.
Thank you
Um,
Uh,
so much.
Of course, but I would just really encourage that whatever side you're going to choose, you just get more educated on the topic.
I sure would.
But
Sure would. All right. Thank you guys
yeah,
for answering my
thank you so
questions.
much. I feel like this conversation was productive. Hopefully, I hope you don't feel offended by anything I said. I try to like keep it like
No, I feel
strictly
totally
like
comfortable. Like, hopefully she's not in the live, but that loud feminist lady, I did not like the way she carried herself with the discussion.
that's
But you
okay.
guys
That-
are pretty chill. You guys are pretty chill.
Mhm.
Perfect. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you so
Um,
much for coming on, Naomi.
I
Do
do
you
think
mind?
Rena wanted to speak to him, so I'm going to disconnect if he has time and he wants to speak to Rena, or if they want to speak to Rena. Sorry, I don't know your pronouns. You can go ahead and do that, but I'm going to dip out. Thank you for allowing me
Bye,
the time to
Naomi.
talk to you. Bye,
No one
guys.
Have a
wants to speak to me? All right, bye.
Yeah, some other people wanted to speak to you, so stay for just a little bit if you don't mind.
All right. I
Blake,
don't
I
mind.
know you wanted to speak to him first, so I'm gonna go Blake and then Rena.
Can you hear
I,
me?
yeah, I think the
Blake?
reason why he couldn't handle loud feminism is because of the way she carried herself, and I don't necessarily agree